Good evening and a warm welcome to you all. I'm your host Kavitha, bringing to you another Wednesday community health session with Anaajoree. Since we are coming live through a virtual meet, so I would like to inform our participants that we will mute everyone while the session is going on. In the end, we will have a question and answer time where you can raise your hands for sharing your thoughts. And please excuse us for any inconvenience caused due to the network issues. Anaajoree means the bond of love. It signifies unconditional love. It is this bond of unconditional love for his native land that brought back Milin Dutta, the founder of Anaajoree from USA, to start a non-profit organization in 2018, which engages and promotes various initiatives that are striving for social change, honing leadership skills, and building entrepreneurship capabilities in the Northeast, including Assam. For the past few months, we have been engaging with speakers from various fields via virtual media to create a network among the people working in this region. It's my pleasure today to host a person who has taken the best of the Western culture during her 3 decades of experience and blended it with a rich Indian culture through the recent advances in neuroscience to create an organization called Yogakshema. Anaajoree is fortunate to have you, Dr. Usha Vastare, as our speaker today. I'll introduce you to our audience, ma'am. So Dr. Usha Vastare is the founder of Yogakshema Rehabilitation and Wellness Center. She has been faculty of Temple University School of Medicine, Philadelphia, USA. She was the clinical research project coordinator at Parkinson's disease and movement disorders Pennsylvania Hospital, Philadelphia, USA, which honored her with Service Excellence Award. Under her organization, she conducts workshops for mind training based on most recent advances in neuroscience, bringing science and spirituality together for holistic living. Team Anaajoree welcomes you, ma'am, with a warm hug. We are all very, very happy to have you here. Please, ma'am.
Thank you, Kavitha.
Ma'am, I would like to start this session with your introduction as a neuroscientist, and with your journey, I would like to just know about some things that you would like to share with us. How was it for you as a learning when you started this journey as a neuroscientist?
Yeah, that was almost 40 years back when I first started my research career in US. The very first project I undertook was to look at the difference between blood flow in the brain of young and older animals. I think this was the spark, and then from there I went on to look at various different disease models, neurological disease models like stroke, spinal cord injury, different types of stroke models. And from there, from that basic science research, I ended up with the clinical research, putting pacemakers in the brain of people with Parkinson's disease. I was in charge of a nationally coordinated clinical trial because it was still an experimental surgery at that time, wherein the neurosurgeons would put in pacemakers in the brain just like they would put pacemakers in the heart. So from there, the journey started. And as they say, everything is about the mind. I think I just fell in love with the brain and the mind, and of course, also the heart.
Okay, so and then how did this Yogakshema was conceived? How did you conceive this Yogakshema?
Yeah. It's interesting. When I was doing clinical research with Parkinson's patients, one of my roles was to educate people with Parkinson's disease and also their care partners. I understood the real impact and the importance of the role of caregiver in a patient's life, in any chronic illness patient's life. And that is what prompted me to come back to India and start a stroke management center, because most of my basic science research was on stroke and spinal cord injury. So we started a stroke management center, and that soon expanded to become Yogakshema Rehabilitation and Wellness Center. Rehabilitation in terms of overcoming chronic illnesses, and that too in a non-pharmacological way. At that time, there was a lacuna in the healthcare system, in the medical system in India, wherein the patients would get very good pharmacological treatment, but something that cannot be treated by drugs, something like our emotions, our feelings, our relationships, none of these will be fixed by colored pills, that comes in a white bottle. So there was a lacuna in the system. And as far as I know, Yogakshema was the very first organization that included care partners or caregivers along with the people with chronic illnesses for their treatment. And that too non-pharmacological, holistic, integrated.
Okay, that's interesting. So today we are going to talk about Yogakshema, of course, your workshops. We'll come to that afterwards. But today that I wanted our audience to know about is neuroplasticity, which is something that is very important for, it's a lifelong process. So how do we understand what is neuroplasticity in your words?
That's a wonderful question. Let me go a little bit into the history behind it. And I just have a few slides. Let me share the slides and then go in an organized manner. Just to give you an introduction.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. There you go. Just to give a very brief introduction about what is neuroplasticity and what does lifelong learning mean. What is neuroplasticity? May I request the people to please mute their microphones, otherwise it would be disturbing. Thank you. So what is neuroplasticity? It's a very technical term. What does that mean? In the past few centuries, one of the biggest breakthrough in the scientific field is that the brain can change at any age. This discovery that the brain can change at any age was really very crucial, and that it opened up many, many vistas and avenues for the treatment of people, and not just for treatment of illnesses, as you will see how Yogakshema has used this capacity of neuroplasticity in various different fields. So you might ask, so what? So what if brain changes? We cannot feel the brain, we cannot touch it, we cannot see it. We will not, most of the times we don't even think about the brain that we have. So what does it matter if the brain changes is a very normal question that comes to everybody. So why should the brain change? And if the brain changes, what is in it for me? Because we cannot see, feel, or anything. If we can answer this question, everything will fall in place. If we need to change our lives, we really don't know about this. if we need to make long-lasting changes in our life, the brain itself has to change. When we make really quick, fast, temporary changes in our lives, just like we change our wardrobe, we change our hair color, we change our hairstyle, and then things will be different. Those are temporary changes. Similar to that, we change our mind and we change our life, right? But to make long-lasting changes in our life, until and unless the very structure and function of the brain changes, we won't be able to make long-lasting changes in our life. That is the reason that why change brain, that question is so important, and the answer to that is also equally important. That is why uh, the most important breakthrough that the brain can change, and it can change itself, was very, very crucial in the scientific field. So how does the brain change? Now we have to go back to recent history, just a couple of decades back, wherein the current Dalai Lama, he challenged the Western neuroscientists, saying that if you actually change your mind, you'll be able to change the very structure of the brain. At that time, when Dalai Lama posed this challenge to the Western scientists, we just thought, if something happens to the brain, something pathological happens to the brain, some trauma happens to the brain, some injury happens to the brain, the mind will change, but not the other way around. Because at that time, the brain and mind was just looked at as though it was a machine, like a computer. So the brain was it was equated to the hardware of the computer and the mind to the software in the simplistic terms. If that is the case, can changing the software change the hardware of the computer? Of course not. So the Western neuroscientists said, no, that is not going to happen. The other way around is very plausible. So at that time, Dalai Lama posed another challenge, saying that this is what it says in the Buddhist scriptures. And we know that the Buddhist scriptures was an offshoot of our Hindu scriptures, which means both in Buddhist scriptures and in our Hindu scriptures, this is what it was said. If we change the mind, it actually changes the brain itself. Not using this terminology in many different ways. So Dalai Lama posed another challenge, saying that, look, you try and figure out, do whatever experiments you need to do. If the brain changes by changing the mind in a particular way, then you have to change the scientific texts. If the brain does not change as you change your mind in a highly structured, effortful ways, if that is the case, then I'll go back and change the Buddhist scriptures. That was a very bold challenge. And the Western neuroscientists took it. And at the time, there was a lot of new technology at that time that was present, like fMRI, not the MRI that we use in clinical studies now, but fMRI, functional MRI, and then PET scans, SPECT, SPECT scans, and EEG with many 256 electrodes, like you see in one of the pictures here. The Buddhist monk, who himself is a French molecular biologist turned into a Buddhist monk. His name is Dr. Matthew Ricard, and he's been showcased as the happiest man in the world, by the way. So anyway, using these technologies, Western neuroscientists did series of experiments. And for that, Dalai Lama sent many Buddhist monks like the one you see in this picture. Just like him, many other Buddhist monks were sent to US and Europe, who had many different hours of meditation experience, starting with 5,000 hours of meditative experience to 25,000 to 30,000 hours of meditative experience. Their brains were scanned, and the brains of the Buddhist monks which were scanned were compared to the non-meditative groups of people. When they were compared using such state-of-the-art technology, and whatever Dalai Lama challenged was really true. What does that mean? If we need to change our life, of course, we need to change our brain. How does that happen? If we change our mind consists of thoughts, emotions, feelings, perception, memories, belief system. All of these, if we can change in a highly structured, effortful, willful, conscious manner, not changing the mind in a flippant way, like how we change picking coffee over tea, not in such a flippant way, but in a highly structured, organized, conscious, mindful, effortful, and willful ways over a period of time, the very structure and function of the brain changes. So if we change our thoughts, we change our brain. If we change our feelings, we change our brain. If we change our emotions, we change our brain. If we change our memories, we change our brain. If we change our perception, we change our brain. If we change our belief system, we change our brain. But all of these changes at the level of the thought, emotions, feelings, perception, belief system, memories, all of this, until and unless it is followed by changing in our experience, which means changing in our habits, changing in our behavior, there won't be long-lasting changes in the very structure and function of the brain. So if the very structure and function of the brain changes, then our life itself changes. And this change, how the brain can restructure itself, remold itself, this is called rewiring. And the technical term for rewiring of the brain is nothing but neuroplasticity. So neuroplasticity actually begins from a single thought, but it has to end with action to have long-lasting changes in our lives. So this is the essence of neuroplasticity. And I'll just go over with you what are the applications of this neuroplasticity, especially how Yogakshema has used this knowledge of neuroplasticity and how it has applied to many different groups of people. I'll just touch upon this and then we will go to Q&A or your questions, Kavitha. So the first and foremost and the easiest is the importance of application of neuroplasticity in physical rehabilitation. And this we see in many of the neurological illnesses, starting with stroke. It could be TBI, traumatic brain injury, any kind of trauma that is caused for brain. It could be in Parkinson's disease, any of this. Physical rehabilitation improves a whole lot, and the mechanism of this rehabilitation process, we now know as scientists that it is through this process of neuroplasticity. Even just couple of decades back, in fact, when I started the work through Yogakshema here, when we were treating people with stroke, they would come and tell us that their doctors have said, try and do some rehab for the first 3 months, 6 months, or at the most 1 year if somebody can afford. After that, you need to just accept whatever limitations that you have. This is the way people would come to us, and then we would educate them to make them understand the importance of neuroplasticity, and that the brain can change. The connections of the neurons can change at any age, but the faster and quicker that sooner that we start after an illness, it is better. Otherwise, it is going to take a whole lot more effort and time otherwise. So starting with that, we went into looking at health issues at the emotional level, mental health issues. Any chronic illness doesn't even have to be mental health illness, issue, but even if somebody is going through a physical illness, if it is chronic illness, it does affect our mind because of the very close connection between the body and mind. We all know that. So for people with chronic illnesses, how they can keep their emotions at a level so high enough to aid in the healing process. This is how we would educate people. And going from that, we have treated panic disorders, anxiety, and depression. And especially depression is our signature workshop in Yogakshema. That by educating people how neuroplasticity works, and by reprogramming their own neurochemistry of the brain, they can overcome many of the mental illnesses like depression, like bipolar, like anxiety, like panic attacks, or like general anxiety disorders. And then much more than that, just the interpersonal relationships. Most of us don't have any issues, any problems, but I can assure you, each and every person will have some issue or other when it comes to interpersonal relationships, either with family or with friends, with their loved ones. So we have educated people about the importance of understanding how to utilize this application of neuroplasticity in nurturing healing feelings, healing emotions. Extremely important. I always say we need to pay a whole lot more attention to the interpersonal relationships than just our physical health. Something for all of us to think about. Interpersonal relationships are so crucial. And finally, how do we improve the quality of mind using the application of neuroplasticity? This is for anybody and everybody, starting with young kids to people who are retired and who are bedridden too. They can still improve their quality of life, because quality of life is directly dependent on the quality of our experience in life. And that quality of experience in life is directly related to the quality of mind. So most of our workshops are improving the quality of life through the quality of mind. And I'm just gonna, we all know this, what is lifelong learning. I'm just gonna give a definition and then stop my discussion so that we can go with the Q&A. lifelong learning is nothing but an ongoing, voluntary, and self-motivated pursuit of knowledge. We know lifelong learning means pursuit of knowledge, but that pursuit of knowledge has to be an ongoing process because it's lifelong and voluntary, not because somebody else says so. And it has to be self-motivated. Self-motivated is really important because we are all interested in how. We will get the how, but the why behind it is what helps that self-motivation and that voluntarily learning new things over our lifelong period. Because if we don't enjoy, only when we enjoy learning can we make it a lifelong experience. So until and unless we make journey itself as the destination, as they say, it is hard to be involved with lifelong learning. I think with this small introduction, Kavitha, I think I'm just gonna.
Yeah, this is so wonderful. Very nice. I mean, this is so informative, and this is what I wanted to know: how neuroplasticity is important in our life. And I have seen that you have made this Yogakshema all about this. So you are working on these things. But
Yes.
Acha, what it has an impact on the neurodegeneration and the movement that we see during these illnesses.
Yeah.
So so neuroplasticity helps in that kind of a illness also, like
Absolutely.
Alzheimer's, dementia, and those kinds of things.
Yeah, this research is still very, very recent, and we need to do a whole lot more. But how it helps is not only can we rewire the brain, but we now know, unlike when we learned, when I was going through college days, we were told the neurons are supposed to be called as post-mitotic cells. That means they cannot divide. They can, once they're born, and the only thing can happen is that they die, both neurons and also heart cells, cardiac cells. But now we know that the new neurons are generated. This is a process called neurogenesis. So both through neurogenesis, and lot of research work is happening in the field of neurogenesis, especially for illnesses like dementia and Alzheimer's, that the new research that is happening in neurogenesis is what is going to help a whole lot in that process, in the neurodegenerative diseases. But until then, whatever neuroplasticity is nothing but that repetitive action over a period of time, not just once in a while. But for example, Parkinson's is a movement disorder that we know. Because it is a movement disorder, people tend to hold back with their movement because it becomes tougher. Because it becomes tough, they reduce their mobility. This is that vicious circle. Once we understand, no matter what, yes, it's slow, it will be much slower. Even though it is slower, we have to keep at it. We have to keep at it. There is no other way, because there are many anecdotal references wherein we know people who took either walking or even running, for that matter, when they were diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. I'm just taking that as an example, that's all. But very initial days, that they were able to overcome the progression of Parkinson's a whole lot. In other words, Parkinson's is a slow neurodegenerative disorder that we know. That neurodegeneration slows down a lot when we do the neuroplasticity exercises. All that it means is keeping at the physical exercises, keeping at the cognitive exercises, keeping at the emotional exercises, or in other words, what we call this as tools, rewiring tools for the brain or neuroplasticity tools. Once we understand, and the person has to take the onus and responsibility. See, this is the thing that it is, many ways it is so easy, but yet it is so tough. It is so easy to take a pill and wish, hope and wish that whatever we are going through is going to go away. This is whatever we are talking about, the neuroplasticity tools or the rewiring tools. It has to start from that person. Nobody else can do or help the person except motivate and educate. But it is the person who has to be in charge to be able to take up these rewiring tools in a manner, in a consistent manner. It's all about practice, 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 and nothing else. And that is why it makes it difficult, whereas it's so easy to pop in a pill. But
so are there any everyday exercises, like a simple exercises that we can follow for this neuroplasticity of our brain? Is there anything?
Yeah, any exercise for the matter will rewire our brain. All it means, neuroplasticity means our brains are constantly changing, whether we know it or not. Every thought we get, the structure of the brain changes. When I say the structure at the molecular level, at the electrical level, but it doesn't do long-lasting changes. To make long-lasting changes, it has to be repetitive, so that the networks are created or broken or created. So it is all about repetition, going through it day in and day out. For example, just walking itself is such a great exercise, a rewiring tool for the brain, you know.
Okay, the simple, that's what I just wanted our audience to know, that is there something that we can just do in our daily life, so that like dementia and Alzheimer's, because once it starts progressing, there is no way that we can again regenerate new cells. So is there something that we can apply in our daily life so that that kind of situation is avoided from, I mean, for neurodegeneration illnesses? Yeah.
We really don't understand the genesis of these diseases, be it Alzheimer's, dementia. If we know what causes, then there can be a cure, because we really don't know the real cause of either dementia or Alzheimer's. We have to work at the symptomatic level, right? That's why we won't be able to cure, but we probably will be able to delay the progression of the disease. So one of the things is to keep our brains active all the time. I'm saying brains, and again, the mind active, not always preoccupied. There is a difference, right? To be using the mind, the conscious mind, most of the times. In other words, trying to be mindful most of the times is the way. Yes. And I have a list of the tools. Maybe I can show that slide and then we can take it from there. Would you want to see the tools?
Yeah, we can go for it. Yes.
Okay. Yes. So let's just I've just listed some of the rewiring tools or the neuroplasticity tools. Now, what we're trying to do is to focus just at the level of the body, physical body level, at the gross body level. We also need to think about our emotions and feelings, which is also very, very important, you know. So for anything to have a proper attitude, even to face any illness that we get, or to face old age, face the limitations one might have in one's life, that proper attitude is very important. So it is like being hopeful and having being optimistic and being positive. That is like seeing the silver lining in any cloud. It starts from there, the proper attitude with which we look at life, the proper attitude with which we look at the worldview, the proper attitude with which we have the relationship with others. Starting from there, when we keep changing our attitude in a proper way, that itself changes the structure and function of the brain, is what I'm trying to say. So learning something new, extremely important. Learning something new, and if possible, teaching that to somebody is even more fruitful. Any age we can learn something new all the time. It could be it could be music, it could be artwork, it could be knitting, it could be biking, it could be learning some new exercise, learning yoga, tai chi, whatever it may be. Learning something new throughout the life. That is what's important. And developing an attitude of gratitude. We don't give too much importance for this, to be grateful to anything and everything we face in life. There is so much research that has happened. We know people who have an attitude of gratitude are much happier. The conventional wisdom says people who are happy, they have an attitude of gratitude, right? But it's the other way around. This is what the new research shows. People who have an attitude of gratitude are much happier than the ones who do not. And then having simple things, nutritious food, and especially not using refined food products, and especially refined sugar, and good fat, not saying non-fat, good fat is also equally important. And sleep hygiene. Many of us, we don't realize how sleep is important for anybody. I'm not talking about when people are stressed out, either they sleep too much or they sleep too little. We won't talk about that. That's a separate topic in itself. But for all of us, so many number of hours of sleep, each one of us have to figure that one out ourselves, is extremely important. One quick tip here for sleep, proper sleep hygiene, is to get enough number of hours of sleep every day. The trick is to wake up every day at the same time, no matter what time you go to bed. We know usually what happens, right? We tend to go a little bit late to bed, and then we get up a little bit late too. Instead of that, even if we have gone to bed past midnight, wake up at the same time that one is used to wake up. That is what will help to get that sleep the next day or the following day, depending on how much sleep we have lost. So that sleep is extremely important, especially for rewiring of the brain. And I cannot stress this enough, that importance of physical activity. I think that slide says it all. All the things that we know are deleterious because of smoking, we get the same deleterious effects when we are physically inactive. Just, it is so important, so important. And now we know what are the types of chemicals are released when we are physically active. We knew about the endorphins and serotonin, happy chemicals, all of that. The newest chemical is what is called as BDNF, brain derived neurotrophic factor, which is shown, this has been shown in of course, animal experiments, and it has been shown in West with students, when students are physically active, even on the day when they go to exam, when they do their exercise, it could be jogging, it could be weightlifting, whatever it is, that is what helps them to recall now what they have studied. The memory increases, the focus increases, concentration increases because of that chemical BDNF that is released because of the increased physical activity. I think just a few tools to start off.
This is so helpful, ma'am. Very, very helpful. I believe our audience has taken in these things, and then I would like to come up with one question here, ma'am. My curiosity. See,
Sure.
we are not born with a clean slate. Okay, we have some kind of a genetic thing in our brain. Our brain is not at all clean. Okay, so how does it get impact? I mean, genetically, we come. Something is inherited. We don't come with a clean slate. So how do we work with that?
That's the recent research in epigenetics. Epi means above, at a meta level. Yes, genes play a huge role. This is the debate that was happening a couple of decades back, and now we know for sure. At that time, there was a clear-cut distinction between nature and nurture. In other words, how much do the genes play a role and how much is the environment plays a role? And there was so much debate, so much research that went on for the past few decades. Now we know both play a huge role. And even though we are born with certain predisposition because of the genes that we carry, it is possible to make lifestyle changes such that those genes need not get expressed. And many of the studies with twins that it has been shown that one of the twins who has gone ahead and then made lifestyle changes stayed healthier than the other twin, which carried the gene and then got into whatever the disease that it went off to. So even though genes play a role, when we make changes in our lifestyle, not just at a physical level and also at the emotional level, one of the strongest robust features that we know that causes certain illnesses is that an unforgiveness state of mind. It has shown to cause many different illnesses, including cancer. Of course, it is very hard to show the correlation, like the cause and effect relationship, but there definitely is a way that unforgiveness state of mind is responsible for many of the illnesses, including cancer. And that is where one of our workshops, another signature workshop of Yogakshema, that forgiveness, self-directed neuroplasticity, happens when we forgive.
Okay, this is wonderful, ma'am. Yeah, I hope this we get a chance from Assam also, that we can our people from Assam can join your workshops. So we'll go ahead into the workshop. Just one more question that I want to ask you here. Like you were talking about forgiveness here. So forgiveness comes from our own consciousness. So based on neuroscience, what is consciousness?
Yeah. Based on neuroscience, like whatever we are perceiving through our senses in the external world, right? It goes in and then we perceive. It is the mind that is conscious, is consciousness. That is what we, according to neuroscience, we can simply classify mind into two types. One is the habitual mind or the emotional mind that comes from the region of the brain that we share, or it works the same way as it works in other animals. Let us just call that as a lower center of the brain. That is where our non-conscious, or people call that subconscious, I prefer to call that as non-conscious mind. Whereas the part of the brain which is very, very new means a few millions of years old, which means as humans evolved, this part of the brain developed, which let us call that as a higher center of the brain. That is very unique for humans. That is very unique for humans. In animals, it is in a very rudimentary stage. They still have it, but it is very, very rudimentary. And the mind that is emanated from this part is what we call it as conscious mind. What we talk in our scriptures as that consciousness, I would call that as consciousness principle. Neuroscience has not had a hold on it, because rightly so, if we understand from our scriptures, it is not something that we can actually study. You cannot make the consciousness principle, what we're talking about, you cannot make that as an object and study. That is why in science it is extremely hard to be able to study the consciousness principle you're talking about. But according to neuroscience, right now we are all awake, we are all conscious, we are conscious of what is happening in the external world, we are conscious of what is happening in our body. That self-awareness, that is consciousness.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am, for that. Is there any connection with our auditory cortex and the brain, that because I have seen in most of the dementia patients that either of them, they have suffered, I mean, they had a very long history of hearing impairment. So if there's some kind of an auditory impairment, then does it lead to brain functions? I mean, disturbing the brain function, is it there?
Oh, absolutely. But we don't know if that is causing dementia. When there is hearing impairment, when there is visual impairment, yes, definitely. But again, we are still far from it. But from a research perspective, there is so much research that is happening that blind people are able to see now. It's not that we need this sense organ as the eye to be able to see. The new research, neuroplasticity research, to it more than that, it is body mind interaction research.
Yeah.
Body mind computer body and mind interaction research shows we can place electrodes on the tongue, and these electrodes will pick up the signals, and then the person will be able to see. So when you place electrodes on the tongue of a blind person, that blind person will be able to see. These are all very new research. BCI, by the way, body-computer interaction research.
Yeah. Amazing. These facts are so amazing. And these, I believe that it should be brought in front of, everyone should be aware of these advances that neuroscience is going ahead. And here, I would like to ask you now about Yogakshema, the workshops that go on with you. If there's some of your faculties here with us today.
Yeah.
Can we have? Yes, Vasanji is here. Yes.
Hello.
Hello,
yes,
Vasan. Yeah. So good to see you, Vasan. And we will be, I would like to introduce Vasanji for this audience of ours here. Ushadi, you would like to introduce?
Yeah, Vasant is the director of wellness for Yogakshema, and he has a very interesting career, and he worked outside the country in the IT field, communications field. And when he was still young, he left all of that and came back to India and pursued the yoga training. And now he's a yoga therapist. And much more than just that, he made lifestyle changes to fit in his belief system, his holistic, integrated way of looking at the worldview. So he actually grows his own vegetables in his backyard and then consumes the vegetables. He's a Gandhian in his heart, and then he's a mindfulness practitioner, and he is one of the faculty of Yogakshema too.
Okay, so people from Assam can actually take your workshops and become faculties in the district of Assam also, where we can have centers like Yogakshema.
I would like
Vasant, is that possible
to answer these.
Yeah, please, Vasant, please.
Yes, certainly. I think as we understand more about each other's organizations and understand the workshops over a period of time, as they start understanding the Yogakshema's various workshops and they implement that in their day-to-day lives, it will be nice to have this knowledge being propagated out, and it will be, of course, more than welcome that we have more faculty members on board for the same.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. We are looking forward for this. Now we'll, there are so many questions that are coming up. So madam would be, ma'am, we can open the question and answer section now, Q&A for the audience.
Certainly, Kavitha.
Okay. Yeah, so our founder, Milin ji, is here.
Okay.
Milin ji, you're here. Saptarag, Milin ji is here. Hello. Saptarag.
Yes, ma'am.
Milin ji is here. Milin ji is here. Is he with us?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Milin sir is here.
Yeah, you can unmute him. Yeah. And then we'll take other question answers. There are some questions that have come up in the chat room.
Can I ask one question?
Yes. Who?
Can I ask one question, ma'am?
Yeah, who's that? Please tell your name.
I'm Dr. Mukul Kumar Sharma. I'm a member of Anaajoree. Milin might not be there because he came to Nalbari, my town, actually, for a work.
Okay.
And,
yeah. Okay. No issues. Yeah. So you can go ahead. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. It's a very, very nice topic you have been dealing with. And personally, I have been working for the gay people of Assam. Assamese gay youth who are closet, hiding, homosexual youth, you can say. They are not coming out, and with a lot of homophobia, self as well as societal. And a majority of them have this mental disability, no, out of depression maybe. And when I try to motivate them about how to get rid of it, I cannot. I mean, actually, they do not go to the mental health professional and all these things. I know that neuroplasticity, whatever you are talking about, it's a very good thing, but only for us who are conscious about our mental health. But these people who have been going through it for long, and since I work for them, I know, I recognize the problem and can pinpoint them. But at this moment, I'm not able to, to bring them to the resources. And they are, for years, they have been like in the same state of, being mental disabled person, means they are not working productively, although they look healthy. How to address this issue, ma'am?
Yeah, this is going to be a tough issue because even when we conduct workshop for people who are undergoing depression, until and unless they're able to cognize, comprehend, it will be tough because this is not faith-based, right? It is not just taking a pill. We know, though, if I take an antidepressants, that will help change the balance of chemicals in the brain. It is not like that. It is through education, through understanding our own mind, how it works, through understanding our own brain, how it works. So certain amount of comprehension and cognition and certain level of focus and concentration is a must for any of our workshops. If that is not possible for people, it will be tough. And for people who are severely depressed, we advise them to take certain medications according to their doctor's advice. And once they're able to sit and focus and not resist the learning, that is very, very important. That is why that self-knowledge, or that voluntarily we need to be able to put this into practice, not because somebody else says so, then it is not empowering. The more we understand why we do this, that is where it becomes empowering. If we just focus on how, a lot of people will do the exercises, they will do every day. It's just as part of exercise. And if we don't understand how this exercise is helping at a deeper level, then it is not empowering. It will work. But for somebody to be really empowered, that why behind all of this, why do I want to change? Why do I want to come out of depression? Why do I want to come out of that anxiety state? Why do I want to come out of this unforgiveness state? That why, if it is not strong enough, no matter how many how we can give to the person, it won't help. So we need to go to the root of why. If that means a certain amount of self-motivation, certain amount of feeling empowered, that they want to feel empowered, that they do want to come out of whatever that they're going through, has to be there for this to work. Which means it takes a lot of time to prepare the people, prime them, to give them the right type of information to be able to prepare. Because this is so new, and the way we are conducting these workshops is even newer than how it is being done in West at a commercial level too. This is what has attracted thousands and thousands of people to attend the workshops in Yogakshema.
Okay.
Do you want to
Mukul
add
ji,
anything, Vasant?
Dr. Mukul, yes.
Yes, I also wanted to add that till now, Yogakshema has actually conducted workshops where close to about 30,000 people have attended these workshops. And there have been a lot of success stories of people who have been able to overcome typically mild to moderate depression. And we are also enhancing this program to a residential treatment program very shortly. We'll have to wait for those announcements. Currently, we are just developing those programs.
Okay, that's great. That's great. That would be helpful. Dr. Mukul Sharma, you're there? Okay, okay. I think his question has been answered. There's a question from Mr. Arnab Karmakar. Does neuroplasticity help in conditions like epilepsy? He's wanting to ask that.
Yeah, so not directly, for especially conditions like epilepsy. The only way out we know as scientists is by taking the proper medication. But how the person deals with looking at the worldview, because many a times it is either the stress that triggers epileptic seizures in some population of people. So such things we will be able to train ourselves to manage that stress, so that the frequency of epileptic activity can decrease. Only those things that are under our control we can do, but usually it is at a very different level, until and unless a person is on anti-epileptic medication, it will be hard to control. But the ancillary factors, it could be stress, it could be anxiety, if it is associated with all of that, that can be helped, not while they're going through the seizures, but other times.
Okay, okay. There's one a student from class 9 who has asked this question: how can we control our brain from distracting?
Rather than controlling our brain for distraction, we should look in a positive way. How can we train ourselves to focus more? How can we train ourselves to concentrate more? I think if we change the way we are looking at things, the things we look at will change. It's one of the very popular sayings. And I see another faculty, Rakal, another Yogakshema faculty too. Good. Do you want to add anything, Rakal, with respect to?
Welcome, Rakhal.
He's one of the
Thank you.
younger
I'm
faculties.
happy that you're arranging such a wonderful program.
We would like to have some inputs from you also.
For the what we call her auntie, sorry. So I think we will continue to call her auntie. I think from what I've heard from auntie itself and what I have experienced, it also is probably when we look at it from the way that if you like what we are doing, if we enjoy what we are doing, so I think your focus will be naturally there. So probably start seeing your studies the way you can enjoy it, then probably you'll be more focused.
I hope this answers the question for our ninth grade student here. And it's so good that that kind of audience is also here today to listen to you, ma'am. And there's one more question here that has come up, that the brain also ages, mind does not age. Is there any preventive maintenance method to avoid brain aging?
Lifelong learning, and as Rakal said, enjoy that learning, love to learn. The old saying still holds true. use it or lose it, right? If we don't use it, we will lose those connections. So the more we use our brain, the better it is. The more of the higher center of the brain that we use, it is even more better.
Right. There's one more question, but I suppose you have already given us some tools that we can work for having a happier and balanced life. So there's this, okay, Rangarajan, Mr. Rangarajan, he wants to ask you, how does neuroplasticity work with differently wired or neurodiverse brains? Example that the way that I understand ADHD is that certain neurotransmitters work differently, which causes it to behave differently. Is this something that can change with neuroplasticity exercises? ADHD
Certain
example.
neurotransmitters. Okay,
Yeah.
ADHD, yeah.
Yeah.
And again, there is so much research that is happening. Absolutely, it is possible to rewire the brains. And then, in fact, there are studies, again, anecdotal studies which have been published. Kids with ADHD without taking any medicine, but with mindfulness practice to improve concentration and focus. This is another answer to that ninth grade student too. How can we improve the concentration and focus? If we practice mindfulness breathing every day, not just when we have to study for exams, on every day at the same time and sitting in the same place, then the focus and concentration increases. And as a matter of fact, we have certain audio links of various different mindfulness techniques. Maybe Vasant can allude to that. So using mindfulness as a way to overcome ADHD has been established. See, it is not like giving out medicine like usually what is done for ADHD kids. But depending on the age of the kid, the parent has to work with the kid to do this mindfulness breathing, to be able to calm them down, to be able to, in a stepwise manner, to be able to keep increasing their focusing power. It is definitely possible because the neurotransmitters, how are they released? It depends on our thoughts, our emotions and feelings. It is all about managing our thoughts, managing our emotions and our feelings. This is my favorite pet peeve. I always say, maybe I'll say this before asking Vasant to add on to the mindfulness audio links. See, we go to either schools, colleges, or private tutors to learn anything and everything, whichever subject or whichever art. Even for breathing, we go to people like Vasant to learn to breathe properly. But mind is even subtler than our breathing. Where do we go to train ourselves how to think, how to feel, how to emote? This is my pet peeve. I've been talking about this even with education, is that all of this has to go with young kids, even preschoolers for that matter. Only when we learn matter of factly, okay, if you think like this, this is what's going to happen. If you feel like this is the consequence. We understand that our actions have consequences, but do we know our thought patterns, our thinking, our thoughts have consequences? How we feel have consequences. How we emote has consequences. We might be right. It might be righteous indignation. When we are right, somebody else thinks us that we are wrong. And we have this anger within us, which is righteous. But is it helping us? It is somebody else's problem. They have mistaken us, but I am getting angry with such angry feelings and angry thoughts. I am harming myself. I am hurting myself. Simple logic. If these can be taught for young kids, we don't have to suffer like this as we become adults. When I say suffer, I'm using it in a very technical manner, scientific manner. And off to Vasant to add on to the mindfulness or anything else that you would like to add, Vasant and Rakhal.
Yeah, Vasant,
Sure.
please.
Yeah, I just sent the mindful breathing recording, which is kept on the YouTube channel. One can look at that and practice. That's a great first step to practice mindfulness, to
Okay.
become aware of our breath, because breath is a strong bridge between our mind and body, and it helps us to quickly anchor ourselves to the present moment and come back to here and now, rather than dwelling over some unpleasant past events or projecting ourselves to future which has not yet happened. So mindful breathing is a great start. It's a very good practice that anybody can do at any age.
Okay, thank you so much, Vasant. That is very helpful. I hope our audiences will take note of this, and I will also give this up in this link I'll share in our FB page also, so that people can take advantage of this. And one more thing I wanted to ask here, since we are talking about this ADHD and these things with the kids. So, like for some children, how do we recognize the mental retardation that starts during the very initial stages? Is there any way that, and does it help in recognizing early stages that the person, that the child doesn't go for mental retardation? I mean, doesn't deteriorate into that? Is
It's
there
a
any?
very good question, Kavitha, but it is outside my expertise. It would not be right for me to answer that because it's outside my purview. It's a very sensitive issue. It has to be addressed by the right doctors.
Yes,
But a very
yes.
good question.
I have always thought about it, since I told you that we are not born with a clean slate, so there are genetics involved maybe. I always wonder when I work with these kids here, so I wonder that would it help to recognize in early stages that there are some things that we can work with the brain of the child that can not develop into this kind of a situation.
Absolutely, because the earlier we start, the better it is, because the way the brain changes at a very young age, it's even faster, quicker, and also because the growth factors in young children and young adults is a whole lot more than when compared to senior citizens, aged people for that matter.
Yes.
Any type of growth factor, it could be VEGF or NGF, various different growth factors
Right.
are there in abundance. And then it is just the matter of making the kid practice certain things over and over and over again.
Okay.
But the hopeful statement I want to say this here is, especially with mental illness, many a times it might start off as mild, but because the care partners, caregivers, parents, teachers, or the friends do not know how to handle such kids, it will get aggravated. If we are more kind, compassionate, and more understanding, it with lot more forbearance, and just these feelings are not going to be enough, of course, with the proper type of exercises, cognitive exercises, that there are many experts who would give out those kinds of cognitive exercises, and with the proper understanding, with a loving family, there will be alleviation of the symptoms of mental illness. This I can safely say, and with experience also I can say this.
Good to know this, because I have always been very curious to know why these, I mean, I always find out the reason behind how our brain behaves. So I generally go into these, there's always a past that has led to the present that has come up. So if we can do something of the past in that case, because for a child, even for the parents to come to know that the child is not able to hear is only when he comes to that state. Okay, so it's very difficult. So that's why I wanted to ask you about these things. But then, yeah, it has been such a informative kind of, and I don't know, we can't even stop here, but we can't even go ahead with these things. But then, I mean, this time is so short. I don't know. I have so many questions. Maybe one more question that has come up in the chat. No, it's the Vasant has sent us the mindful breathing recording. Okay. So is there anyone here, so we can wind up the session? If somebody is interested in asking some more questions, can come up.
I think Sureka has raised her hand.
No, that has
Hello.
been there since last the whole session.
Hello. I am from
Yes.
Bangalore.
Yes.
My question is, in the mindful state, they say you should avoid thinking, and it should be, in a state of awareness only. So when we stop thinking, is it not idling the mind and brain? And does it help in the improvement of other abilities or the tools which Madam has told? Does it help, or is that correct? Because in the meditation also they say mindful, you should not think, you should stop thinking, you should be in the present. So when the mind is in the present state and you don't think anything, only hear some noises here and there, then the brain becomes totally idle, and it doesn't help in activating the or improving the brain function. I mean, this is some doubt always have. Can you just tell, ma'am?
Certainly, very good question. See, when we use the word mindfulness or meditation, we only know one way, that's all. But whether there are many different meditation techniques, or you might call that mindfulness techniques, meditation techniques, either from the religious perspective or from the scientific perspective for that matter. There are so many different ways. It is like, see, when you go to a restaurant, if it is, if many of the sandwiches are laid out on the table, you pick whichever sandwich that you want. It is coming to that stage with respect to mindfulness or meditation techniques. So we need to know what we are looking for, and we can actually choose that particular meditation or mindfulness technique. In fact, I should ask Rakhal if the neuroscience of meditation tape has been on our YouTube channel, that we can give that link. Depending on the type of meditation that we do, we can expect with many different results. And also when we say don't think, that doesn't mean it is a thoughtless state. It is really, really, really tough. Somebody who has risen to a very high meditative state with many, many years of experience can get to that kind of sort of thoughtless state for a fraction of a second or for a couple of seconds. That's all. It is not that easy. What we mean is just witness the thoughts. Usually, how do our thinking pattern works? I get a thought. I'm saying, oh, he said he's from Bangalore. I didn't see the name. It's a man. Maybe he has come for other Yogakshema workshops, or where did he get this? So like that, one thought leads to another, and another, like a chain of events. What we need to do very simplistically in meditation, when you get a thought, don't entertain that thought. Just witness the thought. In Sanskrit, it is called Sakshi Bhavam. When you just witness the thought loses its power if it is a negative thought. If it is a positive thought, it doesn't matter. Just witness. What we're trying to do with that technique is trying to keep our mind in equilibrium, trying to attain that samatva. So that helps, just witnessing the thought. If we need to improve our focus and concentration, then we can take a thought and focus on that thought. It could be an affirmation. It could be a cognitive cue, repetition of a cognitive cue, or you might call it a mantra, or you can call it a japa, or you can just watch any object, and then the focus and concentration will increase. So there are many different types depending on what we are actually looking for. And I don't know, Rakal, is that maybe we can give that link later on, or if it is not there, that will give you, that talk will give you an idea about various different types of meditation.
Yes, it's not on YouTube, but if you can pass on the number or something, I can pass the link.
You can share it with me, so I can put it up, Rakal, in that.
Okay, right now I don't have, so I'll have to.
Afterwards, then
Sure.
we'll put it in our FB page so that people can take advantage of that. So now, since we have come out, I mean, there's so much of extra time that we have taken now, but it has been so much, I mean, informative that, and people still have so many things to ask you. So we'll take this up again in a session. I look forward to having one more session with you. And I hope it was, I mean, I have that feeling that bringing you here has been such a great thing for me. And having you here with Anaajoree is fortunate to have you here in our platform. And
Likewise.
okay, thank you so much. I hope you will come again. And I would like to thank you and your team here, Rakhal, Vasant, everyone. Thank you so much for spreading the information, sharing so much of information with us. And I'm so sure that we are going to arrange, I mean, these students who can come up with you from Assam, and they can come and join your workshops so that we can serve the humanity out here also, like you're doing this great job. And we'll bring you again in another session, maybe in a month or so. I'm waiting to get you again with another topic here, ma'am. There's so much to listen to you. So thank you so much. Thank you, our audience, for joining us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kavitha.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kavitha.
Thank you, Rafael. Bye-bye. See you.